In the case of the Aiken Red House, there were 18 to 24 slaves that lived on the property that took care of the needs of the Aiken family in the 1830s to 1850s. The Aiken family had 100 additional slaves that worked in the city outside of this property, and those slaves would have lived in different properties that the Aikens owned. It's very interesting to look at the Aiken Red House versus other properties in Charleston. It tells us a lot of different stories and yet doesn't tell us a whole lot at all. There were windows for ventilation. This is all very unusual because in many slave quarters in other urban settings, you don't see that privacy for slaves. Predominantly what we know from African American history in the city of Charleston is that slaves living on a property here in the city did have more freedoms. They had slave tags. There were oftentimes where they carried papers on them so people would know who they belonged to and where they were going. And in the case of religion, I think it's very interesting to see how the church is such a formidable and important and pivotal role for slave life, because that is where they truly can have their own freedom. And to think about being enslaved, being brought to this coast because you had a talent, and that was the cultivation of rice. The plantation model came to us early on. Cash crops were tried and developed. In fact, you can see slave flyers that say an excellent shipment of Negroes coming from the gold or rice coast. And those slaves, enslaved Africans, sold for a higher price than, say, from some of the other areas. One of the trades was working with iron, and around Charleston, much of the beautiful ironwork that you see was done by those people. Construction, different things that they knew how to do. Expert watermen who were able to traverse narrow